Welcome to Be Hero Media. I'm Tom,
And I'm Brian.
and we're here to discuss
Or Fuss.
over what's new
What's trending?
and what is to come
Giggity.
in pop culture.
So before we go on, I love our new tagline stuff because it's me. But the last episode we did, which was a fantastic episode, was breaking down what the archetype of Spider-Man is, and kind of talked about a couple of the other ones.
Yeah.
So if you haven't had a chance to go watch that, go back and watch that real fast, and then come back here. We actually surprisingly have an interesting tie-in to the Amazing Spider-Man in this episode we just found out about.
Yeah.
So come and join us for that. But on this episode, we're actually going to go ahead and give you a spoiler review of the 2022 Scream.
Yes.
So, if you haven't watched it, pause this, go watch it. In fact, you could probably go to the theater and watch it and not have anybody else in the theater. We didn't when we went to see this until like a minute before the movie started. So,
And that's not to say the movie's bad, because it's not. It's actually the number one movie in America right now. But,
yep,
it's easy to get into any movie right now, honestly.
it's true. It's beating Spider-Man right now as number one, but that's because everyone's already seen Spider-Man like 3 times.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
But before we jump into that, just so you guys can stay ahead with what's coming out with us, either here on Be Hero Media or with our other podcasts such as the Bump Card, Wrestling Podcast, or when we stream or anything like that, go ahead and hit up our social medias such as
Facebook.com/BeHeroMedia, Instagram.com/BeHeroMedia,
on Twitter at Be Hero Media, as well as everything that is Be Hero Media at BeHeroMedia.com. Also, while you're here on YouTube, if that's the way you're catching us, go ahead and put a like on that to help us with the algorithm. Write a little comment if you'd like. Tell us how you think about this episode. Also, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you can get notified when we come on.
Yes. And tell us if you've seen the movie, which hopefully you have if you're watching, what your favorite moment was in the comments. We want to know. Favorite moment, favorite kill, favorite actor, favorite, whatever. We want to know.
And maybe not even just this, in general, like out of the whole series, out of the 5 movies. And if you really feel like you want to be a great Scream aficionado, out of the episodes of the TV series that came out as well.
Yeah. In fact, whoever wants to go through and rank the movies, and again, even if you want to add the series, we want to know how you guys would rank this movie, particularly in the whole of the franchise.
That's right.
And we'll tell you our thoughts soon.
That's right. So again, spoiler warning. But for this episode, or for this movie, I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. As you and I talked after the movie was over, it was definitely fantastically well done. In a very similar vein as what the original one was done by Wes Craven when he wrote those.
Yeah, I mean, going off that, I actually had a lot of reservations about this because Scream is a beloved franchise. I've always adored these movies. They're the perfect amount of camp and horror for me. I'm a huge Wes Craven fan. He's an incredible director. One of the most inspirational directors, like for me personally, of all time. And so when I heard that they were making a 5th movie, which obviously Wes Craven, he passed away, may he rest in peace. I was worried. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I was very worried about them trying to carry this franchise without like the visionary mastermind behind it, the king of horror, the god of horror, critiquing horror is no longer there. And so I was very worried. But that being said, I really enjoyed this movie.
I did too, and I also had similar reservations. I believe this is the first one since his passing. And definitely was the first one he was not involved in completely. When it came to the Scream movies, and knowing that it didn't have Wes's seal of approval to start with, but even like the tinge of his fingertips on it, it made me worried. Yeah. Which, happily, there was no worry because this had Wes all over it.
It did feel like a Scream movie. It feels very much at home in this franchise.
Yeah, and they do it in such a perfectly well West meta way that I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Yeah.
Um, so for everyone to get caught up on the summary of this, basically what happens is uh, a ghost face killer, a serial killer, is going after people who are tangentially related to the people from the original movie, where you have like Randy and Billy and Nez Campbell's character Sidney Prescott,
Yeah.
Dewey. You have oh, my brain just turned off on the other killer's name, which is ironic because that's exactly what happens in the movie too. Uh, not Billy, but
Yeah.
oh my gosh, and I forgot the actor's name too, which is surprising 'cause I love that actor.
Yeah. We are the worst. Matthew Lydiard as Stuart.
Matthew, yes, Stu,
Stu. Yes.
yes. Uh, so you have Billy Loomis and Stu, who are the original killers in the movie, and both play a role in this one. The main character, who is uh, played by, what was her name?
Melissa Barrera, and then her sister, played by Jenna Ortega,
Yes,
Melissa plays Sam Carpenter, the main protagonist, and then Tara Carpenter, her sister.
her sister. Tara is actually the first one to be attacked,
Yeah.
but the Ghostface decides not to kill her because he's trying to bring Sam, who has left home, has left Woodsboro, back. And you find out through the movie that Sam is actually the illegitimate child of the original killer, Billy Loomis.
Yeah.
And they play on that. They have her have like psychotic break a little bit where she's actually having visions of Billy and things like that.
Which we talked
Which
about a little bit, and I think I wouldn't say that element necessarily was bad. I would say that it felt underdeveloped, and because of such, it felt very unnecessary. It does have a neat payoff at the end,
yeah,
but because of how underdeveloped it is, I think the payoff would have worked the same without it.
I agree. Like we talked about after the movie. I think that they had a couple different ways that they could have done this. I also think that there's a good part of this, that part of the side story with her being Billy's son and having the psychotic breaks and seeing him that was left on the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
But that being said, like the main aspect of the story where they do what is called in the movie a requel, I believe that's what they called it,
Yeah, a
a
requel.
redo sequel.
Reboot sequel, yeah.
Yeah. So as they say, like they lay it out. They have the niece and nephew who are twins of Randy from the first movie, who is in this, who is kind of the guy, who's the explainer of the stuff going on in the first three movies. They have that in this one as well, talking about the rules and things like that, and trying to explain what's going on in kind of horror movie kind of thing like this. Um, and they do great, by the way. Um, Especially Mindy, the female twin of this. She is 100% full on Jamie Kennedy Randy. Even so much so that they're doing the drunk off your ass, Jamie turn around, Jamie scene again, and they pay it off in a really great way too.
They really do.
Um,
And
but
yeah, go ahead.
they explain what a requel is, and a requel is not a reboot or a redo or a sequel directly. It's kind of a soft reboot where you have a tie-in or tangential tie-in to the original movie or series or storyline that's being played through there that gets paid off in this, but has it where now you can use new characters to continue the story and change that path.
Yeah, exactly. Where
And
you bring in the old characters for fan service, but you do it in a way to hand the torch per se. And
exactly.
while they're explaining this, they actually bring up a bunch of examples like Star Wars: The Force Awakens, even the newest Ghostbusters movie, which that
Hmm.
came out a couple months before this. Like, But there's lots of examples of that they give, and on top of that, I think that the way that they reference other movies in this was actually just really well done. The being able to talk about elevated horror with referencing things like the Babadook, or what's
Still love the Babadook.
Hereditary, stuff like
Yep.
that. So they actually did. I mean, how much homework do you have to do to reference good horror movies? But like that was important to me as a huge horror fan.
But they also call out other things too, where they're talking about the Stab movies, which is their version of Scream in their universe.
Yeah,
They call out how like they can get so diluted and derivative where you end up having something that's totally away from the original character, like you do with like the later Hellraiser movies or like Jason Goes to Space kind of thing.
yeah.
Uh,
Jason, Michael Myers.
yeah. So and you know it takes it away, which they talk about as the last one, which is kind of a very important pivotal part of this movie. I almost say it's the lone reason and motive for this movie to be done is because of stuff like that. Um, and they call it out in there because the movie didn't go as what fans wanted, true Stab fans. Then the movie proceeds with these two new killers doing what they felt like was a better Stab 8 movie in there, to go along to fix what they thought, what their headcanon was,
Yeah,
which comes to the question, which will happen on another episode we'll do, of uh, toxic fandom. Is fandom becoming so toxic that you can have a scenario of this exact point be done because of such? Uh, and for that episode, please stay tuned, hit that notification bell, subscribe, so you'll see that episode we'll do of that.
yeah. Because I
Uh,
mean, it's a very interesting subject because. I mean, there has been a lot of incitations of violence and threats and everything like that, but we'll save that for that episode. Um, so to kind of get back to this, what are some of the things that we liked? Obviously, David Arquette. Um,
oh, it's fantastic in this.
he's he's always been kind of a more of a comic relief in the franchise, like a very fun, very lovable character. Not really a comic relief, but just more of like a naive, lovable, like protector, I guess. Cop.
He's the Archie. He's the what the hell's that character's name from uh oh, my brain just turned off on everything all at once.
What are
Um,
brains for,
it,
anyways?
he's the Barney Fife. He's the Barney Fife character. He's the lovable idiot, who's around for like the oh gee whiz kind of guy.
Yeah,
In the first movie, and he kind of as the movies go on get a little bit more like
more.
jaded, I
Yeah,
guess.
he gets more developed. He gets smarter about things. He kind of like
Mhm.
but like even in like 2, 3, and 4, like he's still just kind of that adorable guy that you love and you're always rooting for him. And but with this movie, they made him a dark character that is actually still 100% true to form. I really
Oh
don't
yeah.
know a better way to describe it. Like we are looking at a weathered, beaten down, just everyone's seen like I mean,
I'd almost say he was a gale weathered, beaten down person.
yeah. I
Dun-dun-dun-shh.
I think it's fair to say that that most people know someone that was just like the most wonderful person. Like you probably know someone in your life who was just the most wonderful person who eventually just got beat down by life. And this is where he is at. He's at his wit's end. He's got very little left. Um
Like
but
he
he
talks about it in the movie. Like he literally, the only best part of his day is in the morning when he wakes up to watch the morning show with Gail Weathers.
yeah.
And at this point, they're separated. I don't think they're divorced. I think they're just separated. Um, and you know that's his best part of his day. He literally lives for that part of the day. In the fourth movie, he was the sheriff in Woodsboro, and by the time this movie started, he'd already gone so far into the bottle of this that he has been asked to retire as sheriff.
Yeah.
And Judy, who's in the fourth movie, who's the one hitting on Dewey and stuff the whole time. She's not sheriff,
Yeah.
and I think it had such a great story for Dewey. In fact, I'd almost say that he, out of the original cast, he's the one that gets the most love and payoff for in this movie.
He absolutely shines in this movie. I think I he, like, with the original cast, he is my favorite by far.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that like Courtney Cox doesn't come in and kill it. She plays her role just fine. I think even
Nev Campbell,
Nev,
his character for Sidney Prescott.
yeah, Sidney Prescott, Nev Campbell's, yes, she did a wonderful job as well. And actually, she is kind of my favorite Scream Queen, which we talked about on a previous episode, which it was unfairly said that she is helpless. She is absolutely the furthest from helpless for she is like the most empowered Scream Queen there freaking is.
Well, they even push onto this one too.
Yeah.
Like if you look at some of the other ones that they did, so after the second movie, or actually at the beginning of the third movie, where she's essentially a hermit in a cabin somewhere. And then in the fourth movie, she tries to live a life, and her cousin, spoilers for that movie, is the killer trying to kill her. They you get to this one in the fifth one, and she has finally gone all over all of that survival skills and being able to trust people and stuff. Where she's married and she has kids now, which is
Yeah.
something that the previous Sidney Prescotts would not have had in those iterations. And I think that adds to the strength of her character. And when she rolls up in this movie, she's like, "Of course, I'm Sidney Prescott. I got a fucking gun."
Yeah, of course I have a
Excuse
gun.
my language.
Yeah, no, that's straight out of the movie. But like, I think that was amazing. And one of the things that we did talk about as well, because one of the interesting things they did is they actually do bring them back to the original house from the first movie, and
Stu's house.
and the shot of Sidney Prescott standing outside of that house, about to go in to try and save, these two girls,
Sam and
Tara, that does like that perfect like pan out zoom shot. What do they call that? The I forget what it's called, but you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yeah, they do a great cinematography with this one.
yeah,
Like I didn't see who the cinematographer was, but they did a great job in this. Um, I don't see it right here off the top of my head. But they did a great job with this for that. In fact, I would say a lot of the behind the cameras people did great. The director did really well. I liked how not only cinematography did, I think everybody was directed well, save one of the killers, which we talked about before.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I
She
think
she
that she was
was
a little underdeveloped.
she was underdeveloped. She was she was super generic. Jack Quaid killed it.
Oh, for sure.
But Mickey Madison, meh.
And if you guys don't remember the name, Jack Quaid is one of the main characters from The Boys, who does a great job in that. And he has a lot of great comedy in this. He just brings that into Scream as well. He is easily the funniest part of the movie.
Yeah.
For 90% of the movie, and even when he's trying to kill people, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Again, language. But with all that being said, like everybody nailed it, I think, except for Mickey Madison. And I can't say that her character Amber didn't do great. I think for the parts that they gave her, she did well. But her character's kind of one dimensional, really, especially
Yeah.
relative to everybody else. Well, maybe Liv, the girlfriend, she's kind of one dimensional too. But this movie's got a short runtime, relatively. I think it was
Yeah.
only an hour and 23 minutes.
Yeah.
Something like that. And so it has a fairly short runtime. I felt like if they would have gave it like hour and 40, they could have gave some of these other characters a little bit more. And that's a big one thing for me. There's several deaths in this movie that I have no care for. It's like, oh, they died. That sucks.
Yeah. There's one in particular of just kind of like, let's just introduce a douche that we can kill. And that's exactly what happens. And it's the entire, from introduction to death, is 3 minutes, maybe. Like
Yeah.
it's short.
Well,
It
they
was
even have.
very, like, you could tell what was going to happen. It was very silly. Like, I think it was a really effective whodunit, right? um,
Yeah.
but like when something like that happens in a whodunit, like you can see from a mile away, like, oh, we're gonna try and tease that he's the bad guy, and then they kill him immediately, and it's like, yeah, we knew.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Like,
was too obvious of a guy. Um, but I think they did really well. I want to give a little love to the writer of this, James Vanderbilt. Built. He did a fairly good job. Again, I don't think a lot of what he wrote made it to the screen, um, because there's some stuff on there I felt like it was missing. But he's pretty prolific. I didn't realize how much actual both good and bad stuff he had. Um, Start off with, he was the original writer, to tie back to our last couple episodes, of the Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2,
yeah,
which had great writing to it and a great
amazing
story
character
to it.
development.
Oh, for sure. Also did the Zodiac as a screenplay, which was very good, like stupid good.
Yeah,
But then he also did some duds, like Darkness Falls, which was his first screen credit that he has as a writer. Um, he also did the remake or the reboot sequel, I guess, of Independence Day Resurgence. Didn't work out really well.
he did
But then he has
produce
some like,
Ready or Not, though, which, if you haven't seen
yeah,
that, that is a wonderfully bloody good time.
and The Rundown, which is a freaking hilarious movie.
Easily The
I
Rock's best
mean,
movie.
it is not. It is
It
not like Shakespeare writing, but it is great writing, and it's funny for what it is.
it's an
And
amazing
same for another
comedy.
movie he has. The that White House Down he did really good in. The Losers as on here too. That I really enjoyed. Well, I think like the big ones like the Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 and the Zodiac, like they freaking killed it. And I would put this up there with some of his best writing he's done.
Yeah,
Um, like there's a lot of conversations in this movie that felt real,
yeah,
right? They didn't feel like something like you are listening to the guys talk. It's like nobody says that in real life.
yeah.
There's no one somebody have that reaction. Like they have a scene that's mimicked from the first movie where they're talking right after the first killing is done. It's like, oh, you could have done that, or you could have done it, or you could have done it. Kind of that thing like they do
Yeah.
in the first movie, and they do it in a way where it felt exactly like that. It felt real. You had people like, "Oh, this guy was a douche," or something like that. But then someone like, "Yo, they just died, bro," and it's like, and like,
Oh,
sadly, that's a real conversation.
I love the scene where like, it could have been you, Dewey, and they like say all these reasons. He's like, well, maybe it was you, because that cut deep.
Right? Right? So good.
Oh, that was
Oh
amazing.
man. Uh, yeah, David Arquette nailed this. And like honestly, I've always given David Arquette crap for being as an actor. He's always a comedy actor, right? But he had such great dramatic stuff in here. Um
Yes.
in this movie, especially stuff like towards the end where he's talking about why him and Gail didn't work out, things like that.
Yeah, and even
Like
that scene
that
with him and Gail, I think it's really the one scene that they have together.
mhm,
Um, was mostly riveting. Like
yeah.
it was very well done. Felt very real. Um, and so, and I want to kind of, playing off that note for a second here. I know one critique, because we've been talking about kind of the serious nature of this movie and how they do a really good job kind of grounding it. But in case you are worried and you haven't seen this and for some reason you're still watching, it still brings in the fun, the camp,
Oh yeah.
the little bit of corniness because of its meta nature. It is still a very fun and enjoyable movie to watch. It's not just like, it's not self-serious. It's serious when it needs to be serious for development of the characters, which is how it should be. But then when it gets to the punchline and gets to the end and everything starts coming to fruition and following the rules of surviving a stab movie, like that's all still there. The elements of what makes Scream such an enjoyable franchise is all still there.
100%. Like I said, it felt to me like a great Wes Craven sequel to the original movie.
Yeah.
Especially where it's 20 odd years later.
Hmm.
That it felt right. It felt just like it belonged with the rest of them. In fact, I would say I think this belongs better than the third and fourth movie. Honestly, uh, I mean,
Yeah, I think the
as we
third
talked
one's
about the
kind of
other
the weakest
day,
of the franchise.
well, we talked about the other day when we saw the movie that they do a lot of subtle tie-ins to the other movies of like, this person also has a illegitimate child, or this person did this, or this person's similar like this,
Yeah.
relative to the other movies, or motives are similar to the other movies. But all in all, I think I thoroughly enjoyed it. We're getting around to time, so we should probably wrap it up. Tom, what was your like last thoughts about this movie? What would you score this movie out of 10?
So, final thoughts here. I really enjoyed this movie. I want to watch it again. This is absolutely going to be one that I buy and I have in my digital library. Um, I think this, honestly, and maybe people are going to disagree with me, but I think this is the second best Scream movie in the franchise. I would put this above 2, 3, and 4. Not as good as 1, obviously, but I think it is the second best of the franchise. I honestly think I would give this an 8.5. I enjoyed it that much.
I'm fairly right there with you. I also enjoyed it that much where it'll probably be one I'll own. I own the first movie, but that's the only one of them I do own. But I'll probably own this one. Uh, Along with the same thought, I think this is probably the second best in the series. And I don't honestly say like Scream one's here and this one's like right here, and then the rest are somewhere down here. Um, and even that, like Scream 2's still fairly good,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have that same feel like these two both had.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Um,
I think once you get into the, 2, 2 plays off of 1 pretty well. By the time you get to 3 with like the critique and like where the information is coming from and how to survive a trilogy, um
mhm.
it starts getting almost like too campy. I still enjoyed it, but in my mind 3 is the weakest. So if I had to put them in order, I would go 1, 5, 2, 4, 3.
I would put three just above four for myself on that order, only because I've seen four twice, and I usually forget about it like 10 minutes after. Where three, I still can remember like most of the scenes, but part of those scenes deal with cameos because you had Carrie Fisher as a cameo in that. You had Jane Silent Bob as a cameo
The
in that.
Carrie Fisher
Which, by the
cameo is
way,
is amazing.
great. Which, by the way, any movie that has Jane Silent Bob in it goes from a straight up horror movie to comedy somewhere along the way. And I love Jane Bob, but yeah.
Yeah.
But for this one, I would definitely put it out there right up next to it, like butting up against it. I think it is a great successor to the original movie. I would probably go at 8.25, only because the underdevelopment of the Billy Loomis, like psychotic like visions,
Yeah.
and then the underdevelopment of the second villain, the second killer, Amber. Uh, because of those two, I think it brings it down for me on there, but just barely. That being said, I'm gonna once I own this one, I'm gonna have my wife watch it. She's watched the first one finally, and I told her like, you really don't need to watch any others because you don't. You can essentially just watch this first one and then go right into the fifth one, and watch it without a problem.
Yeah, you really could. You would miss some of the development, like understanding the dynamic between Dewey and Gale. Um, like you'd miss some things, but like as far as the general premise, the way it critiques horror, I think the meta critique on this is is yeah, way better than 2, 3, or 4, and much more fluid to go from this one to go from one to this one, um, from that aspect.
Yeah, I very much agree. But you know what, guys? Let us know what you guys think. Again, hit us out in the comments. Let us know what you guys thought of this movie, where it ranks for you in your order for the Scream movies. Um, Whether you like Jane Silent Bob in the Scream movies or not. Let us know what's going on. hit us up in the comments. And then, of course, you can always hit up our social medias, which are, again,
Facebook.com/BeHeroMedia or Instagram.com/BeHeroMedia.
On Twitter at BeHeroMedia, and everything that is BeHeroMedia at BeHeroMedia.com. Well, I think that's it for us, Tom. Next week, we're going to go ahead and probably do that episode about toxic fandom.
Yep.
Which I'm actually very excited for because I've got a lot to say on the subject about toxic fandom.
Yeah.
So catch us next week for that great episode. So make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for that. Anything else for us, Tom, before we head off?
I think that's it.
All right, guys. So, as always, go out there and
be a hero.
Catch you next week.